All right, well, welcome everyone to the 7th Steering Committee meeting for the Northeast KCK Heritage Trail. My name is Adam Rosa with Collabo Planning and Design. We're the consultants that are working with the community on really visualizing this trail and helping to make it a reality. So thank you all for joining us here on what sounds like a pretty busy Friday afternoon for most of us. I'm expecting a few more will join as we get rolling, but I just want to be respectful of everyone's time and really get the show on the road. So let me pull up the presentation and then we can begin. All right. So I am hoping that everyone can see the PowerPoint. Please tell me if you cannot, but I think we should be good. So what we want to cover today, really a quick review of the goals and process overall, the Draft Heritage Trail overview. So we want to show you where we are in terms of the actual route of the trail and what that's starting to look like. Talk a little bit about the focus areas within our larger trail network. And then we're going to just touch on some draft phasing strategy for how we get this done. And then we have some exciting material to share about the draft signage and memorialization, what this trail could potentially look and feel like. We have a Summerfest event coming up in June, which will be our last large community event related to the plan. And then, obviously time for discussion and feedback along the way. So just to get started on goals and process, I think it's just good to refresh on this. So this project really includes the planning and preliminary design of a physical trail, bridging historic Cow Point to the Quindaro town site, highlighting the rich culture and history along the way. So this is just a plan. Detailed design, implementation, and the building of the trail will come later based on available resources. But through the plan, we're looking to help identify those resources and set the trail up for success. We do have some funding for early action projects in the Jersey Creek area that we'd like to begin moving on this year. And as part of the plan, we'll be creating both a paper trail map, which will be part of the plan document itself, and then an online trail platform, which will be a great resource going forward. And we want to create this as a framework so the trail can grow and evolve over time. You'll see today that we've identified approximately 29 to 30 new locations for memorials and signage and public art. We know that is not all encompassing of the rich history of the neighborhood. So we want to create a structure that allows the trail to grow and new memorializations to take shape, and through a nomination process. And that's part of what we're going to be doing in the plan document. But again, just to reflect back on our planning pillars. So we are focused on history, obviously, this is a heritage trail, but also the environment and how the trail can work with the green spaces and the infrastructure of the neighborhood, past and future. Mobility, the trail really needs to be something that helps people get from place to place. And then economic development. So as we put in this public investment, how can we begin to frame the development potential around the trail? And that's where we get into some of our focus area planning that we're going to talk about here today. So our overall process, we've gone through listening and learning, defining criteria. We have our preferred alignment. Now we're really in the fourth bubble of putting this heritage trail plan together. And we're just a little bit late on our anticipated schedule, mainly due to COVID slowdowns in the winter. But we're really hoping to get the draft plan completed in June and the final plan wrapped up by the end of July. So we're really getting to kind of to the end of the overall planning process. All right, so what is this heritage trail beginning to look like and feel like? So this is the latest version of what we're calling our illustrative heritage trail map. And you can see 3 different colored trails on the map. The orange reddish color in the center is what we're calling the Heart Trail. The bluish color trail is the river trail, and the kind of beige brownish color is the town trail. So all three of these come together to form the ultimate final route of the Heritage Trail. You'll also see some dotted lines on the map. Those are places where potential trail extensions could occur or connections to the trail could be made over time. So there's a lot of locations where you have a school that's just maybe a block off the trail, or a park that's a block off. And we're trying to really go into this thinking about how we could connect those things that may not be on the definitive route, but are nearby. So the Hart Trail is about 3.5 miles, centered on Sumner Academy / High School, connects 5 major parks and 6 schools. We really want to have focused reinvestment along the route, and that's something that's critically important, especially in this part of the neighborhood. So we also want to develop or create development without displacement recommendations and policies as part of our plan. So we're going to be working on that as well in the upcoming months. The river trail is about 1.5 miles from Caw Point to 10th Street, and includes some of the existing Jersey Creek Trail network. So it would be really reframing that existing portion of the trail and beautifying it and adding memorials and making it part of this larger network. But we also want to improve access to Caw Point. We know that it's kind of a difficult, circuitous access now, and we're looking at how that could potentially be improved in the future. And then the town trail is about 2.8 miles from 10th Street to the Quindaro town site. Utilizes some existing trails along Jersey Creek, some vacant rail right away. And we really want this segment to help strengthen the connection between the neighborhood and the town site itself. And we know we're going over a highway. That's kind of a disconnection point, and we're looking at ways that we could potentially bridge that gap and make it a more pleasant experience in the future. All right, so I wanted to take you on a kind of a quick tour of the trail, starting with the Quindaro town site. So we put together this little animated video that'll help us kind of guide us along the way. So let me get this started. Hopefully this works well for everybody. Actually, I'm going to do one thing before we do that. I'm going to click the button that says optimize for video. Okay. Okay, we got a couple more people that just joined us, so this is perfect timing. All right. So we're going to zoom in here. We're going to start our journey at the Quindaro town site. So I'm going to pause there for a second. So what you're seeing on the screen is the circles indicate different locations for memorializations along the trail. And the circles that are filled and have a letter on them are existing memorializations or signs or murals that are already on the trail route. So we wanted to recognize what was there and think about building upon it. So in this case, A is the Quindaro Overlook. B is the John Brown statue. I think we're probably all pretty familiar with that. Number 1 would be a memorialization about the Quindaro Parkville Ferry. Number 2 would be Douglas Hospital. Number 3 would be the Freedman Elementary School and Western University. So zoom in here. Number 4 would be Nancy Quindaro Brown Guthrie. 5 would be the Vernon School. 6 would be Clarina Nichols. 7 would be the Underground Railroad as we go over the highway. So the trail would then proceed south near Quindaro Elementary and Quindaro Community Center. Number 8 would be Nora Holt. Number 9 would be Charles Langston. And all of these locations are they're flexible, you know, based on how things take shape going forward. The trail would then proceed down 18th Street, and it would take us to Jersey Creek. So you can see where the gray line overlaps the brownish color. The gray line means that's an existing trail. So we'd be enhancing what's already there. So we're going south past Carl Bruce Middle School into Mack Park and into the Jersey Creek area. So number 10 would be patchwork slave quilts. Number 11 would be Edward Dwight. And then that gets us to our intersection with the Hart Trail and the River Trail. So going north on the Hart Trail, you go by Woodlawn Cemetery and past Carruthers Elementary, up to C, which is the existing sign for Parkwood Park. And we hit Quindaro Boulevard. So you can see there's the trail network within Parkwood Park. Going east on Quindaro, number 12 would be Benjamin Singleton. 13 would be Boston Daniels. D is an existing memorialization for the Something to Live For mural that's already there on the side of one of the buildings. E is McGrew Grove, which is a small residential pocket. It already has a memorial sign kind of talking about the history. 14 would be the Hub Bookstore. 15 would be Rattlebone Hollow. And then going south on 5th Street, we have the existing wide sidewalk. We'd be going past Banneker Elementary School. We would intersect with the Jersey Creek portion. F is a sign for the Jersey South neighborhood. And G is a existing memorial for Nathan Thatcher Sr. on the funeral home that's there. 16 would be the Douglas State Bank, and 17 would be Dr. S.H. Thompson Sr. and Jr. So that takes us to Washington Boulevard. And I'm going to pause. Oops. Oh no. Okay, let's speed her up. So what happens when you click your mouse? Okay. So Washington Boulevard, we have H is an existing sign for the Turtle Hill neighborhood. I is an existing mural at the Frank Williams Outreach Center. And then J is also an existing mural at the Learning Center. So again, we want to just recognize what's there today and talk about like how this could be part of the trail. 18 would be a memorial for the Wyandotte Nation. 19 would be Alex Haley. 20 is obviously Sumner Sumner High School. And K is the existing Chester Owens Sumner alumni route. 21 would be Davis Porter. 22 would be Charlie Parker. And with a kind of a sign pointing down to Big 11 Lake, where there's already the other Charlie Parker Memorial down near the water, but we thought something on the street would also be appropriate here. And 23 is would be a sign for Big 11 Lake, talking about the history of the location. The Memorial L that's already there today is the Douglas Sumner neighborhood sign. So we'd be going past the Beatrice L. Lee Community Center and then north on 10th Street, where 24 would be Strugglers Hill, 25 would be Chester Owens. That takes us to Jersey Creek, so 26 would be Dr. Marjorie Cates, and 27 would be Judge Cordell Meeks. Over to 3rd Street, 28 would be Juniper Gardens. And then south on 3rd Street into Caw Point. So we have the existing Caw Point Memorial, but we want to do an additional memorial there focused on Lewis Clark in New York to tell some of the stories that are not currently part of the story at Caw Point. So that is how things are taking shape on the Heritage Trail. So again, these locations are really, they're a bit flexible, and we're going to be looking at them in a little bit more precision going forward, but we wanted to show you how this trail was starting to come together. So I think we're going to stop there for a second and, excuse me. We love to just get some of your thoughts and feedback on what you're seeing and how this is starting to look from your perspective. Melissa.
Hey there. So just quick question. Is that just like, this is just part of the trail? This is the first phase. And then is the plan still, I know I haven't been totally in the loop on this. I'm excited about it, but we're also planning our 100-year anniversary for our district this year. And there's a million things going on with that. Are you going to when the next phases come in, will you continue along like we talked about the what is it, the train track on the exterior of Fairfax, and kind of list a few, signage saying some things about Fairfax?
Yeah, so we looked at that pretty closely, and unfortunately it looked like it wasn't going to be feasible from the relationship between the Union Pacific and what they really want to do with their right of way in the short term. Obviously, long term, we'd love to be able to get a trail there. I think the point that you're kind of getting at is connecting the Fairfax district, which I just want to show you this real quick. So
well, Adam, who did you talk to? Because I have pretty good connections at Union Pacific.
Yeah, so sorry. Stop this. So I know that Gunnar had a few conversations with folks there about the potential for the trail. I don't know, Gunnar, if you want to jump in to talk about what you heard.
Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Yeah, when we spoke with the UP, they said they didn't want a trail anywhere near their main line to Lincoln, Nebraska. But if you have others that you want to take a shot at with us to ask the same question, we're all about it.
Well, it does make sense for safety that they don't want them close to the track. Maybe Gunnar, you and I and Adam can set up and have a meeting and figure out a different way to recognize Fairfax.
Sure.
I didn't think about, safety. You don't want people close to tracks, but maybe there's a different way. So I'll reach out to you separately in an email, and we can set up a time and maybe just brainstorm on something if we can.
That'd be great.
Okay, thanks guys.
Sure.
Everything else looks great.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Appreciate that. And yeah, we do want to recognize it along the trail. I think that it is a critical piece. So let's talk about that and think about where the best location might be and how that could take shape.
Honestly, we could also just maybe do something down at Caw Point Park. I'm working on some things with Caw Point Park. We're going to be working on getting grant dollars and funding to fix it up. It's fallen apart since Mike Caldwell, who founded the park, passed away a few years ago. So FIA Fairfax is going to be, we're really going to be embracing the park and trying to oversee to make sure it gets back to where it was and keeps getting better. So maybe that's a good spot for it. So think about that and I'll reach out.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Either Caw Point or somewhere along that 3rd Street corridor as we're kind of coming down towards Caw Point. But yeah, let's think about that a little bit more. But thanks for kind of letting that for us and identifying that.
Okay. Yep. I'll reach out. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I'm going to continue on here. We have several more things we want to show you all, and then we can always come back and talk more about the trail route. All right. Let's keep. Oops. Bear with me a second. Okay. So we also wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive in certain areas of the trail that we think are really critical to the success, and also areas that could have some economic development potential along with the trail. So we've identified these 4 focus areas here. The first is the stretch of 27th Street from the town site down to Quindaro Boulevard. The second is the area near Quindaro Boulevard and Fifth Street. And the third is the area around Big 11 Lake and Sumner Academy. And the fourth being that stretch of Third Street down in McCall Point. So we've been working up some focus area plans for each of these. And I'm not going to go into all the detail in all of them, but I just wanted to show you one in particular and just show you how this is starting to come together. So you can see this is the Fifth and Quindaro focus area. So we're zoomed in here. And the red line is the trail itself. So we wanted to be able to think about what side of the street the trail could be on. How do you cross from one area to another? And then how does that connect with different locations where we could have memorials, where we could have new open spaces or improved open spaces, in this case, Boston Daniels Park. And also thinking about both potential new development and adaptive reuse of existing buildings within these areas. So this is an illustrative version that kind of shows the potential of how the trail could work its way through this area. So again, a number of different memorialization locations, things like murals, public art, new plaza, and also thinking about the infill potential. So we're showing here, about 70 single-family homes, about 35 multifamily apartments, about 6,000 square foot of new commercial space, and about 4,000 square foot of adaptively reused commercial space, along with some new parks and open spaces, and an expanded Boston Daniels Park that kind of comes out to the triangle. So this is kind of the level of detail that we're getting to in these various focus areas. And I see Kim has her hand up, so I'm going to stop the share here. And yeah, Kim, go ahead.
This is probably a question for the last section, but I think it maybe has to do with this as well. So when you're talking about economic development opportunities, when you were talking about the historical markers, public art, things like that, will those also be opportunities for community to contribute to help get those markers up, or are they rolled into an existing budget? Or
yeah, we have a couple of interesting ideas around that we're going to share here very shortly about kind of a community training program that could help build some of these different memorials and different sign elements.
Okay. So, and the only reason I'm asked, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that it kind of piqued my curiosity is you mentioned Dr. Cates, and she's an alum of the KU School of Medicine. I work for KU Medical Center. I mean, it would be I think there are a lot of people where there would be natural fit for fundraising or financial contribution and things like that to help with the marker.
That's a great point. Yeah, thinking about tapping into the connections of all of those different people as we get from marker to marker and place to place. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay. Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of a taste of what the focus areas could look like. So then we've started to think about the phasing of this. We know that we can't do it all at once. We wish we could, but we're being realistic about it and the resources that we think we could potentially tap into. So we've broken this into 3 draft phases, which we think could be viable and feasible going forward. So this is the trail, and we think the first phase could potentially be the Fifth Street corridor, because we already have the sidewalk in place. Really the entire river trail portion of the trail, because most of it is part of the Jersey Creek trail network that's already there today. So it would really just be the connection between 5th and 3rd Street, and then on down 3rd Street into Call Point. We think the first phase could also include the southern portion of the town trail, because again, this is utilizing existing trail network and really just enhancing it. And then we feel pretty strongly about trying to improve 27th Street between the town site and the Quindaro Community Center as part of the first phase. And that's going to be a little bit of a heavier lift because we may be going in and building new sidewalks, changing the right of way of the street to make sure that we can fit the trail through this area. But I think the community's spoken pretty loud and clear about how the connection between the town site into the neighborhood is very important early on in the process. So the second phase would then be the completion of the Hart Trail, which is the circular portion that is shown in red. The third phase would then be the final completion of the town trail, the Quindaro Boulevard segment on down 18th Street, which again is going to take a little bit of a heavier lift because we would be creating a new streetscape and changing potentially the orientation of 18th Street in terms of its width and some of the features of related to the sidewalks and the infrastructure along that stretch. But we think that three-phase approach could be viable going forward, and we're going to look at it in more detail and really explore it as we get into the plan document. All right, so now we're going to get into the real fun stuff. So the draft signage and memorialization. And so I'm going to flip through the slides, but I'm going to hand it over to Rachel to do the narration on this.
Hi all, good to see you again. We're so excited to show you some ideas for what this all could look like. So to start, the kind of onset idea for all of these is that the Quindaro town site is full of invasive trees that should be restored to should be cleared to restore the site to its native habitat. So that's already a project that's being recommended as part of this process. We want to make it easier to really get down to the water and see the site from that angle, and that requires a lot of landscape restoration. And so we wanted to think about how can we use that as an opportunity to take the trees that are cleared and use them as signage. So a lot of these have wood elements, and the idea is to create a kit of parts so that the signage elements can be connected to trees that are about a 6-inch caliper. Now, I'm not a landscape architect, but we've got our landscape architect, Tim, on here, who's helping to think through exactly how that would look like and how we can take bigger trees and create benches from those. So that's kind of the, all of these ideas use that as a starting point. On the next slide, oh, there we go. So we've got a few different sets of signs and memorials. So they are color coded by the different trails and the same colors that are on the map. So the blue is the river trail. So it's the same design language through all of these for a gateway sign, directional signage, interpretive signage, but the colors change from different sections of the trail to help in wayfinding. We're showing directional signage that has a panel of interpretive. We also are showing a tactile map. We met early on with the School for the Blind and talked about accessibility as part of this, and doing a few of these tactile maps in key locations so that people with low to no visibility can help understand and be guided through the trail. We are also looking at sidewalk stickers as a quick, easy way to get memorializations onto the trail. So those would have a QR code that would lead to the Clio app where all of these stories are being stored. So, while we're waiting for signage to be funded and produced for all of the locations, this could kind of be an interim way to help tell the story of all of the people and places that we want to memorialize. We also have this acrylic interpretive sign. You can see here the way that this would work. Yeah, go ahead, Adam. Where an old image is printed on acrylic and placed in the location where a building has been lost. So we're calling it a lost but not forgotten. We know there are so many places where there isn't that physical reminder of what was there. And so we want to use historic imagery to help tell that story and remember that place in a different way. The next slide just shows kind of the color variations for the Heart Trail, and also a few different variations of how the interpretive sign could be used on its own. There could be directional signage that's used on its own, and that the same kind of format for the map signs could be used for other types of interpretation. So coming up with just simple formats that can be used in different ways, and that we can ideally work with Groundworks KCK and other, workforce development efforts that combine the landscape restoration with getting signs on the trail. The next ones highlight the bridge. So this right now is a massive divide between the community and the Quindaro town site, and we really want to use this as an opportunity to have this entrance to that area feel momentous. And so we took inspiration from a cultural wall in Columbus that is a similar situation, kind of over a highway. And by adding, this wall on both sides, it creates this feeling of enclosure. And so it feels a little bit, like a guided pathway instead of you're over this massive highway. These would be 5 by 10 panels. There would be, I think, how many did I say? 50 different panels that would be combined. The logo here that represents the river is connected to kind of weave all of these stories together, and to have, historic images and text to support telling the stories in this one place. And so this would also be combined with streetscape improvements that have trees and landscaping and lighting. We're also showing some LED lighting at the bottom of this to help light this up at night, so it also feels like a safe place. And again, the yellow is the color of the town site trail, so making that connection again through color. And then thinking about what it looks like from the highway. So many cars every day pass through this area. We want to use this as an opportunity to, this bridge might need to be rebuilt in some way. So thinking about, I'm not a bridge engineer, I'm not going to render what that would look like, but as that's, happening, thinking about how can we make sure that anyone passing under this section of 27th Street knows that this is an entrance to the Heritage Trail, and sees the backside of those panels as this bright yellow color. Any questions? I think that's my last signage slide. Any questions about the signs or what we're showing?
Yeah, and one other thing that we had talked about with the bridge, at least, would be potentially lighting it up at night so you could see movement through that, through the curvature of the line, and maybe other LED lights on the lettering, things like that. I'd love to have Tim jump in a little bit to talk about the potential program of I don't know if he can. I think he's just, okay. So I was going to have him jump in, but just wanted to talk about the potential training. Okay, let me see if I can unmute him here. Yeah, I never know how to do it once I mute everyone. I don't think I can. All
Tim,
right.
I think from your cell phone, if it's like 7 or something, or I can look it up. There's a key code to unmute from your cell phone.
All right. Well, I just wanted to emphasize the idea that the restoration of there we go, pound 6. The restoration of or utilizing of the trees could be really a workforce development program with the green team. And I thought that was a really interesting and unique idea. And I know Tim had some thoughts about it, but I don't know if we can get him unmuted here. Maybe *6.
I think I might just got
There you go.
unmuted.
We gotcha.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Adam. What was the question then?
So if you can just talk a little bit about the potential program of utilizing the existing trees at the town site into what kind of a workforce training effort with the green team.
Yeah, so through the lens, kind of a restorative approach in the landscape there, and trying to be as frugal as humanly possible with our limited budget on the front end. Walking through the Quindaro town site, it has a significant amount of restoration potential and need, most notably about clearing out some of its invasive timber. And we just had an interesting experience in Pittsburgh where we were working in the McKinley Park area, and we developed a series of workforce programs around some of the site amenities, around benches, around signage, and other elements of that source. And it becomes, kind of also a metaphor of turning kind of an invasive product and a waste product into really fueling some of the amenities moving forward. And that lends itself to slabs and timber construction. It lends itself to the aesthetic that Rachel and Adam and the rest of the team are developing. But it also leverages what's something that's kind of on the ground right now, and that's the infrastructure with groundwork and their green team and kind of their educational mission and their engagement mission. And so this could kind of be a double, win on both sides. It could be something that starts to open up the landscape and create clearer pathways, which has to occur along the trail, the town trail in particular. And how can those then not just be thrown away, but how can those resources be determined? Are these great level straight sticks and we should be putting them for the post? Are these big enough that we could create slabs and then become beautiful benches and beyond? Or do they become mulch and they become temporary trail reinforcement as we kind of clear the path in some of these highly invasive landscapes that, we don't want to lose the aspect of connecting with nature, but you do want to utilize the opportunity to use these as resources. And most notably, an experience here in Kansas City, our office originally was down in the West Bottoms, and we overlooked the Parks and Rec maintenance yard over off 9th Street in Hickory. Every day we watch these beautiful, robust street trees come in to the Parks and Rec yard, and then they cut them into little pieces and then mulch them, and then they mulch, they're mulching walnut trees. And so we made an agreement with Parks and Rec to any tree over 20-inch caliper to let us know, and we'll go pick it up, and then we'll run it through a local sawmill, and then it becomes bench slabs on public projects, private projects. It becomes a resource, and so with limited resources and the want of kind of green jobs, a restorative approach at workforce development, this seems like a really interesting concept worth exploring a little bit more than just using wood as kind of a natural aesthetic.
There was a reason why we unmuted him.
And I can send around some really beautiful benches that have come out of the collaboration with just KC Parks alone, that are even examples in our current office over in the Jazz District.
So any thoughts on that notion of a program, or how the signage memorialization that we're showing looks from your perspective?
Going once, going twice.
Adam, hi, this is Maida. I have a question on any of the projects that we do for the trail. Are we looking at community involvement? In other words, if people work on these projects and they have a kind of a, affinity so that they don't become, things that are targets for, say, artwork, so to speak, and community involvement where people are helping make these things or clearing away or have some way that we feel that we have ownership because we've created these projects, even if from something very, well, I know I don't have professional skills on making benches and whatnot, but I can, like at Kaboom, where we put up a playground, I was able to rake the mulch. But is there any incentive or thought about getting the community involved in any of these projects at any level so that they feel as though, they want to protect them for the future and make them sustainable, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Maida. Thank you for bringing that up. And that's part of why we wanted to try to develop this program with reusing the wood resources. So the idea would be you would have this kind of kit of parts of different materials that could then be assembled by the community in various locations, depending on the type of sign or memorial or whatever it might be. And then along with the sign, there might be space for landscaping and plants and flowers and other things that kind of enhance it. So there's a lot of different ways for people that people can get involved in the implementation going forward. But we also want to carve out some opportunities for some of the public art projects. And I know you've been working and thinking about some youth directed public art along the trail, which I think could really connect in with one or many of these memorializations that we're looking to do, especially the ones that come to mind off the top of my head are like the patchwork slave quilts. I mean, that could be a really beautiful art piece that's done by the community and the youth of the area. So yeah, we definitely want to be thinking about how the community can continue to have ownership of this project and of the final result of this trail effort.
Hi, I'm just wondering for the walkway over the highway. I like the fact that it's enclosed because I know personally I don't like being up high like that without being enclosed. But the other concern with that though is security. So if you're walking through this area and no one can see, then that's a safety issue.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Rachel, do you want to give your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the lighting is a huge part of that. I also, we had that conversation as well, like, there's visibility of being open, but I don't know that the visibility of being open right now is actually providing any safety because you're only really open to the highway underneath. So I don't know that that's it. It could just be a perceived safety, which is just as important. But I think, sorry, I muted. Our hope is that with streetscape improvements and lighting investments, that would try and counter the concerns over safety.
Yeah, and this is what it looks like today. So, I mean, that doesn't really feel very safe to me either. It kind of feels like feels very institutional and that you're exposed up there. But we were thinking about the fact that the road it has enough width that if you put these panels up on the sides, you wouldn't feel like you're completely enclosed. There would also be, I think we've also kicked around the idea of maybe the panels themselves are semi-translucent, so you're still kind of seeing through them, but they still create that feeling of a positive feeling of enclosure as a pedestrian on the sidewalk.
And I'd add, in addition to that, the potential, how we strategically look at pedestrian mobility. The economic development impact in the area, and the fact that, I don't know, 100,000 cars a day drive underneath that street, there is a huge opportunity also to be telling a new narrative about how that bridge is connecting as they drive underneath it. And from a marketing and branding standpoint, selfishly for economic development. I think it's an extremely underutilized aspect of that divide to act a bit more robust about what this site is connecting, and may very easily have people say, what was that? I want to go up and see that. So there's kind of a few different folds, I think, that's worth considering.
So you're proposing that people will be walking alongside people who are driving on a highway. So so you're widening that, or? So now
No,
I'm concerned about cars, but before I was concerned about people, and now I'm concerned about cars and people.
so there would be a widened sidewalk in that area, so that the streetscape doesn't look like what it is now. There would be better and improved pedestrian amenities and better lighting.
Yeah, I was looking to see if I can pull up the street section that we've been working on for that area. Give me 1 second.
Another thing that we discussed was, and you'll see the street section that Adam is pulling up. The widened pedestrian sidewalk is mainly on one side of the street. And so it could be that that side of the street is where most of the interpretive memorialization is happening, and the other side could be more open with just the kind of river icon or like illustration moving around it, so that there's still something you're seeing from the highway, looking in the other direction, but it isn't enclosed on both sides. So that's another thing that we could look into more as that idea progresses.
And I can't seem to track down the image right now, so I'll have to dig that up, but that will be in the plan. And yeah, we want it to be safe, attractive, and user friendly. Okay, well, we just have a couple more slides here, really just talking about what's coming next. So let me bring that back up. Okay, so our final community event is planned for Saturday, January 25th. And this will be at Big 11 Lake, at the stage area down near the water, from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It is really going to be our opportunity to share all of this with the broader community and to get their feedback on how the draft plan is looking from their perspective. So it'll be a family-friendly event from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We're going to have food and refreshments and raffle prizes. If by chance there's rain, we're going to shift across the street to the Beatrice Lee Center, and we'll be indoors at the Lee Center. We've also looked, and I believe that we got the thumbs up in temporarily closing the road between the Beatrice Lee Center and Big 11 Lake, so that when people park at the center, they can just make their way across the street to the event. So hoping for great weather, hoping for a great turnout. We would love your help in getting the word out about this upcoming meeting. We're going to be doing a few different ways of doing community outreach. Our community ambassadors are already going out and handing out these flyers. You're going to start to see the kind of the street signs with the flyers throughout the neighborhood to promote the event. Maida has been working with a property owner up on Quindaro that we may be doing a full-on billboard on Quindaro for this event, so people know what's coming. And obviously sharing through social media, having these flyers up in various parts of the neighborhood, etc. So we have a little over a month. We really want to have a great turnout. And yeah, so if you have any thoughts about how we can promote this, we'd love to hear that as well. And then a couple other things that are coming up. Karen French, one of our community ambassadors, is doing her book reading tomorrow at the City View at St. Margaret Apartments, 759 Vermont Avenue. So a lot of what Karen documented in her book has made its way into our trail memorialization and the descriptions of the various people, places, and events. So if you're interested in hearing more about it, that's going to be tomorrow. Karen is also organizing and running a youth camp related to African American history in Kansas as a whole. And the camp is running from June 6th to 24th. And you can see the information there on the screen. So please get a hold of Karen if you're interested, or you know somebody that may be interested in that day camp. It's going to be through the month of June. Sounds really awesome. They're going to take field trips to various places. And so those are two more things that are happening here in relation to the trail. So our next steps, we're working to create the development without displacement recommendations. And Monica from Groundwork, who's on the call here, has been meeting with a focus group looking at land bank property within the Northeast area and really summarizing their thoughts about the potential of the land bank and versus how it operates today. So we're going to be integrating some of that into the recommendations. We're also going to be really just kind of drilling down on implementation, thinking about those different phases, what resources are available to tap into, and what partners can help along the way. We're hoping to have the draft plan completed in June, presenting it to the community at the Summerfest, and then finalizing the plan by the end of July. And then hopefully quickly rolling into implementation and beginning to build this thing out. So we got a lot to do over the next couple of months, but really just wanted to thank you all for being part of this effort going forward. And yes, I see Kim's comment in the chat, electronic copy for the flyer. Yeah, I'll send that out to everyone, both as a PDF and a JPEG. And we would really help really appreciate your help in getting the word out on this. So does anyone have any questions or thoughts? We presented a lot here today, and I know you may need a little time to think it through, but is anything that you wanted to share with the group or any thoughts at this point in the process? Okay, everybody's really, really quiet today. We must be doing a great job. So thank you. Yeah, so
Adam,
yeah, go ahead, Mina.
I'm sorry. I just to mention that we are also advertising this trail in a video taping that the Sunflower Foundation is going to be working on, which is pretty awesome. They're doing a collage of the Northeast Kansas Heritage Trail, and also I can't think of the other one right at the moment, but they're going to be presenting that to their funders in a meeting in Miami next month. So they're going to be using little vignettes from community conversations and whatever, Devontae working on that. So that's some nice advertising, but also just the general media, television or whatever, hopefully we can approach them too to advertise our event coming up. So I didn't know if you had that on your plate, but the more the merrier, so to speak, the more the merrier.
Yeah, thank you, Maida. I just wanted to say how appreciative we are of you helping to strengthen that connection with Sunflower. Maida was able to go out to their conference and actually present on the trail and kind of represent the team, and she did an awesome job. And that's how we build support for this effort. So definitely really appreciate that. And yeah, I think we want to look at any opportunity to get people out to this next event and really continue to build on the positive momentum we have for the project. Okay, any final thoughts? All right, well, I think we are all good to go. So thank you everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we will hopefully see you all at our Summerfest event coming up in June. So thanks again.